Authority. Seymour Hirsch, a Pulitzer Prize winning.
Well, I knew you were going to do that. We're live though now, Tim.
What's
we're
that?
Live. You're revealing we're live here on A Free Solution.
Oh, we are.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, we'll see. Tim's ready to go into his Nord Stream topic and just be like, no, I'm defending it. Pulitzer Prize winner.
I'm practicing for the people.
Yeah, I know. We're not going to get to that yet, folks. So thanks everyone who has joined us so far. Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor, and we're going to talk about some of the Ohio train derailment stuff. Just because I've heard people talk about it as like this is like a Chernobyl like situation, or did the media cover it adequately? So we'll talk about some of that stuff, and we'll talk about the car theft situation. I don't know if it's like this in your area, Tim. Probably not, but there's been like a crazy number of car thefts in Rochester, and then people have been taking the stolen cars and driving them through like restaurants and stuff. It's
fantastic. I did do a little research on this story. It's going to be interesting when we break it down on for the radio show.
Yeah,
what's going on?
Yeah, 100%. So we're going to talk about all that stuff. And of course, because we're doing this live for you folks out on the internet, if you have something to add, if you have a topic that you want to talk about, of course, leave in the comments. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're all over the place.
We're coming out to play.
Somehow getting comments before the show even started. I'm stoked.
It's awesome.
Patricia here coming at us from a different point in time, somehow sending comments backwards in time before our show even started.
Absolutely.
But so we'll get to that. So and at 2 minutes 30 seconds, we'll get this show started. Leave your comments, and
all right.
Yeah, let's know. I gotta write this stuff down. I know when to start. All right. And ready, set. No, that's not the one. There.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
How we doing, Kevin? It's good to be here.
Absolutely. Good to be here. Good to be here on this Tuesday evening when we're recording live, Thursday evening if you're listening to us on WYSL. But again, if you're listening live on the Tuesday evening online broadcast, make sure you leave your comments, participate in the show, because we're talking about a bunch of different stuff today.
We are. We've got, and I actually did prep up some fake news, so I hope we get to that tonight.
Oh, man. Yeah. And so you might have some fake news. We'll see. And So we're going to talk about maybe definitely the Ohio train crash situation, possibly the stolen car situation, all the car theft going on. It's a nationwide thing. I thought it was just a Rochester thing for a while.
No, it's all over the place, man. I did some research. It's good. This is pretty epic. It's not a good thing. Like, I got excited there. It's not good, but it's pretty interesting what's going on.
Tim's like, yeah, I'm going to go steal some Hyundais tonight. TikTok challenge. All right.
I got a brand new Kia in my driveway. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I don't.
But so we'll talk about that. Maybe some fake news. We'll see.
Yeah, we should. I got a timeline of the UFOs too, if we want to talk about that. If we get there.
Yeah, so it might be a packed show, folks.
UFOs.
And UFOs quotes.
Unquote.
I don't know. The U.S. government just wants to play around with its F-22. That's all. That's all it's got.
They do, man. They do.
But all right, well, let's talk about the Ohio train derailment situation. This actually started way back on February 3rd.
Why'd the government hide it from the people, Kevin? That's the thing. That's why.
Man, you're just jumping right into it, right? You're like, Just jumping right into like government cover up.
It is. It's a government cover up. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's Chernobyl like, Kevin.
Maybe. Well, let's start with the facts and get into like
we don't
that
need no
sort
facts.
of stuff, right? Now, I'm not saying it's not facts. Like I think there's I think the explanation is probably a lot more boring than that, but we'll start with it was a Norfolk Southern train. They're carrying some hazardous chemicals. Supposedly it was a very long train too, like it's one of those like 12,000-foot trains type of ridiculous ones.
2 miles long.
Yeah, and some of those cars flipped over. They're carrying hazardous chemicals. The vinyl chloride stuff is kind of the one that's making a lot of the news and a lot of people are talking about. The butyl acrylate is another one, and some of the reactions that go on with those chemicals put like hydrogen chloride in the air and in the water, and that's what people are concerned about. So again, this has been going on for a little while. I actually did start seeing it on TikTok like early last week. I started seeing stuff about it.
If you want to stay up to date with news, you've got to be on TikTok and the social medias, because honestly, you can't get the real news from the real news TV stations. You have to be out there in social media and exposing yourself to some ridiculous takes to get to the real news. It's a fact.
Yeah, so I mean, people were talking about it like so like some of these chemicals too, like the vinyl chloride. It has something to do with, it's like a petroleum product, right? And has to do with like plastics production, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's used in plastic production. It's polyvinyl chloride and hydroxychloride or something like that. Two pretty relatively dangerous, very, very flammable, as the story develops, we'll find out.
Yeah,
very flammable type products.
Yeah, and they're also reactive with water too, so it's not like once the thing with chemical fires, the scary part about this stuff is you can't just like throw water on it, right? Like that doesn't work. You have to find other ways of I mean, it's not like you have to find some other way of suppressing it, right?
Right.
And so it's like, okay, what is the best case scenario in these situations with emergency response crews who have to clean this up? You can try to remove that chemical. You can try to do that before it seeps into the ground, into the water supply, before it catches on fire. Once it catches on fire, okay, is it less dangerous once it burns? Well, if it burns completely, then it's maybe less dangerous. If it burns incompletely in this situation, it releases some nasty byproducts there. And so and that's kind of what ended up happening in this situation, right? Like the stuff ended up.
What they were afraid of, my understanding, Kevin, is that this was going to explode, or it was going to get into the drinking water. So they had to took some preemptive actions. They shot it down with an F-22. Oh no, wait, that's a different part of the story. No, they set it on fire deliberately so that it wouldn't do the things that are even worse than what they're doing.
Yeah, and I want to get to this comment from this Facebook user. Says most common ways tend to be as toxic. The PFAS fire retardant, for instance. Yeah, like that's like the stuff they use to put out fires at airports. Like it's nasty. Like it's really bad stuff, toxic stuff. It works, and that's the trade off you make, right? Like, do you need to suppress this fire immediately? Okay, yeah, but it's it has some other consequences. It could be really toxic. It could be dangerous for the environment, carcinogenic in some of these cases. And that's kind of what they ended up making that call in here. It's like, okay, we're going to try to do kind of controlled releases so we don't let this get out of hand. And that's where you get the big black plume that kind of made everyone start paying attention to this. Again, this happened almost 2 weeks ago now. And people are talking about it. And the thing is that train derailments actually happen quite frequently. There's
what?
Yeah, no, there's tons of them each year.
But most of we have a train that goes through Oneonta. It's only had one derailment, and that was back in like 1973.
Well, we're talking about a whole country here, Tim.
I don't know. I'm just talking about my experience, Kevin.
Yeah,
our trains seem to stay on the cars here in rural, central, upstate New York.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe we just have better trains.
Yeah, it can happen. There's let's see. There's been 1,700 derailments per year on average since 1990.
How many chicken fires are there? I'm going to go full conspiracy theorist on you here tonight. No, I look. This is kind of a normal thing. A lot of times, there's not all the dangerous chemicals
Right. Yeah. That's
so
the difference. Right.
that's the big deal. And,
Is
and they
like
aren't legit explosive. Like there was a real risk of explosion, which I think probably would have been worse. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, and it's already pretty bad, right? Again, they evacuated a whole bunch of folks from the town. There's been reports of like fish dying off in all the streams in the area, like pets dying who are within like the contaminated area.
Oh, really? I didn't catch that when I
Livestock,
read
yeah.
through the stuff.
Like again, how true is or isn't it? But people have been saying like, oh yeah, like we've been finding dead animals, right? Is it true? Maybe. Are they related to this?
Yeah, are they walking down the road after a warm day and a cold night? Because there's going to be dead animals. Like they
Right.
go to the road, they get run over by cars. Like doesn't necessarily mean that it's the polyvinyl chloride.
Right. And that's that. The funny thing about like if there's ever like any even minor societal breakdown in anything, and like you can consider this like a mass evacuation of like a couple miles worth of area, right?
Yeah.
When people stop picking up the roadkill, it suddenly looks like everything's dying all over. But it's just because there are people picking that stuff up all the time.
Oh, that's a good point too.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is this is a big nothing burger. This is
it's not that's a big nothing burger. Like me being the squish, I'm always gonna be the story's somewhere in the middle, right? Like
I know.
So it's like this is a big deal, and there's things that we need to talk about. And I want to get to like this comment from this user too. This is like the policy point of where I eventually want to get to is maybe moving giant chemical bombs and huge metal snakes at high speed isn't so wise. That's part of it, right? Like what is the inherent risk of like needing to move these chemicals through our towns, right? Like, and truth be told, like if we're going to have our modern society, you need to be able to move these chemicals in some way, and trains are probably the safest way to do it still, despite all the derailments. Yeah, it's safer than putting it on the highway.
I would say probably, right? And trains, I mean, they could do a pipeline, right? But there's probably not enough being used. Pipelines are actually really safe when it comes to transporting semi-hazardous materials.
Yeah, you can't create a pipeline for every single thing, though, right?
No, but it would be neat if we did, right? Like we could bury them underground, we wouldn't even see them. It would be pretty awesome.
But there are the other points now. I've like followed some TikToks from rail workers who are like, hey, these trains that are carrying hazardous chemicals are too long. If something goes wrong, like a mile and a half down that line, it's a lot harder for these engineers to be able to like do anything to like stop it. If it's a shorter train for the hazardous material transportation, then they're more likely to be able to intervene in a way that prevents a bigger disaster. And so there's possible policy implications of this stuff, plus a lot of people are skeptical of the government right now. They're skeptical of the news media. They're like, well, what should they have told us? When were people reporting on this? And what is the actual safety of this situation here?
Well, the cops had that story locked down. They were beating reporters with clubs and dragging them off of the premises. Like I saw that. Like that's on.
Yeah. No. So. Yeah, Tim, can you explain that a little bit more? Because I wanted to get to that too. Because there's
no, I'm not going to explain.
No, he's gonna be like, hey, just use your imagination to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, you guys just fill it in. The cops were there, laying the smack down, and taking reporters off scene. They didn't want them reporting on this Chernobyl-like event in East Jerusalem, Ohio.
Yeah. So East Palestine.
Oh,
right, Palestine.
Sorry.
But whatever it is, it's so there was a situation though. Tim's telling the truth here. There was a reporter who tried to get in, tried to do the thing. The police were like, nope, this area is evacuated. You can't get in. And the state troopers were absolute jerks about it. Kind of forgot their body cams were on, arrested this reporter. Like just, yeah.
It was for their own good. Was an unsafe situation. They can't have reporters going in there and putting themselves at risk. Then how would that look?
Yeah. So that's that's kind of how that situation went down, right? It's like it wasn't exactly they were preventing them from reporting on it. It was more like you're not allowed in this area and we're going to actually enforce that. And they were kind of jerks about it, but that's what they were doing. I mean, and in terms of like some of the original reporting too, I think there is a pretty fair criticism of this, right? Like in terms of how do we talk about this, and how ought media organizations to investigate a situation like this, right? Where the criticism is that they basically took the PR line from both the government and from Norfolk Southern and be like, oh yeah, like this is derailment, we got it under control, everything's great, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
And that you never actually want a news story to start like that. Like, don't worry, everything's fine. Because that means everything's not fine.
right.
They don't want people to panic.
But
Um,
but reporters do that all the time. They because again, these derailments, they do happen frequently. They just assume like, okay, they're telling the truth, everything's good. I'm just going to report what they said in the press release and go. And you see this with police stories all the time too, where a lot of news organizations will kind of just uncritically print whatever release is given to them,
right.
and then other folks start to dig into it a bit more, and then they're like, whoa, wait, this is not what actually happened. That happened. That was with the George Floyd case. That was with the gosh, like name any high profile case, the Tyree Nichols case, the Breonna Taylor case, all that stuff. Like the initial line that came out from the government kind of glossed over what actually happened.
First of all, it's number one, fair, and we deserve to be skeptical of our government. And number two, we still have to be skeptical of the media too. Like they like you're saying right now, they'll read the blurb from the local police department about this, and that's their level of reporting. Or they'll also do this sensationalization of things. So we always have to kind of try to do a deeper dive on things to get to the truth. And
Yeah.
this sounds reasonably serious. It sounds like an unfortunate situation. Norfolk Southern is walking around the neighborhoods handing out cash to people. So
Right. They're trying
that's
to
a
buy
positive
people
note.
off like $25,000.
Look,
Yeah.
$1 million they've already handed out.
Mhm. So, but because they know they're
They're
in it, man. They're in trouble.
So like automatically my eye catches on, hey, it was obviously a ball bearing that caused this train to derail, and it's just like, when they go like it's obviously that I do suspect that like trains are susceptible to certain levels of domestic terrorism, right?
No, sure.
Or terrorism in general. Not, I shouldn't say it like domestic terrorism. I think
Yeah.
that they're a vulnerable piece of our infrastructure in a way, because like I don't know. I would anticipate that if one was dedicated, they could find a way to make a train derail. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, sure. Of course you can. I mean, like you can weaponize any piece of infrastructure or whatever, right? Like it can happen.
So that's the part that concerns me more than anything, because we will not get the truth about that.
No, I mean we might. I mean, like government loves a scapegoat, right? Like you can
That's
blame
true.
this on the terrorists. Like great, man. Like
Yeah,
and
that's
not just
true.
like incompetence, driven by like someone not wanting to deal with the logistics of splitting this up into further like trains. Like yeah, like it's messier.
It is.
It is, and people are like throwing out all sorts of different stuff. Like again, Facebook, such trains should maybe avoid populated areas. Like it sounds good in theory, right? But like Rochester, for instance, like could Rochester have done as well as it did if we didn't have big trains full of dangerous chemicals supplying Kodak? No, man, that's what
Right.
it is.
Right.
Like there's a big train hub like 3/4 of a mile from my house, right? Like it's
Oneonta, New York, the area that I'm near, used to be like 3 times as big as it is now. It has 20,000 people. It used to have almost 60,000 people back before they rejected an expansion of the DNH. Okay, so there was this big goal of making Oneonta a centralized hub to fix DNH Railroad and process trains and fix them up and put them back on the tracks. And we rejected that. So they simply just moved down the rail yard to Binghamton, and Binghamton obviously continued to grow, whereas Oneonta has now been shrinking for probably 7 decades, and that's a reality. So we need industry.
yeah.
You need industry in New York. There is going to be risks associated with industry, and unfortunately for East Palestine, Ohio, they are bearing the external cost of big manufacturing and a chemical accident.
Yeah. So, like, listen, this stuff's gonna happen, and you just gotta. Again, I don't know enough about this. I'm trying to read as much as I can, and I'm still like, all right, I don't. The EPA is kind of like, oh, it's probably gonna be fine. The tests aren't looking that bad. Other folks online are like, oh, look how this is connected to all these like river systems. This is gonna be dangerous. This is poisoning the agriculture, or the water supply that fuels our agriculture all across the Mississippi River Delta. Hopefully it's not that. But
I think that people lose sight of how massive the environment actually is, and how this, while definitely damaging to that area of Ohio, like I don't know.
The U.S. is pretty big, and
really, it's really big,
really big. So you'd have to do a lot to poison the whole Mississippi River Delta. Like it's just an unfathomable amount of like water for like us to understand on a human scale. Like it's a lot.
It's I think it's a lot. Like, and I think that's a problem when we get into some of these environmentalist worries and people getting all upset over things like that, that they neglect to realize resiliency in the environment, the size of the actual environment, and yes, like sure, it's a tragedy, right? But
it's a bad thing. You're not saying it's not a bad thing. It's just it's probably not a country destroying thing.
No, probably not. Probably not. I think nuclear weaponry being detonated all over the place would be far more damaging to the entire country than this isolated incident.
Yeah. No, and listen, it's this stuff is. Yeah, I mean, again, it happens way more than you'd like to think. I remember the big EPA mining disaster that happened a few years back.
Yeah. I always like they dump tons of like raw material into a river, right? And lost a bunch of the chemical compounds that go into, I don't know, I can't remember all of it, but it was just, like,
so this is bad. It takes a really long time to like actually poison the environment. Like you got to be persistent about it. Not that we Cody Anderson, Tim O'Connor, the environment is really big.
Really big, Cody.
So all right, but we are heading up on our first break. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad. It really is bad. It is
bad.
I would hate to be a resident of East Palestine, Ohio, right now.
No, right there or anywhere near there. Like, really, it stinks.
There was a train derailment that would be like major news like this in Oneonta in 1973, where propane cars blew up, and literally, like, the explosions were felt miles and miles away. People's houses got like broken apart. People's houses burned down. It was bad.
Yeah,
it was a major disaster.
But and I see it's comment. Alice News has been lying to us for years. Yeah, no, like, situation though, like it's. I never got to it on the show, but on like the radio show part. But like what I think it is that, like, again, the beginning stories were kind of boring. They're just repeating the government line. There's train derailment. We got it handled, right? Yeah. And like that, so it didn't really like make much news except for like a handful of like creators on TikTok that I saw who were like, no, this is a big deal. You guys need to pay attention to this. And it took like a week of doing that. And it wasn't until people could see it, until they could see the cars on fire, until they could see the black plumes of smoke and the evacuation, like where people started actually paying attention.
Yeah, I know a guy that had a little bonfire going, and he took 5 gallons of like sludge-filled oil from an old heating tank, and the fire was going pretty good. And he took all that 5 gallons, and it was mixed with a little bit of water and a lot of sludge and a lot of oil, and he threw it right on that fire. And I'll tell you what, this big, huge black plume of smoke went straight up in the air, and it was like a ball of about 150 feet across, and there was no wind that day. And then it kind of started drifting westerly, which normally the winds flow from west to east. But for some reason, this big, huge black ball of smoke starts floating towards the city. And the next thing you knew, the fire department showed up and the DEC showed up, and they were like all about writing that guy tickets. I felt really bad for him.
Yeah, well, that stinks. We got the fire department called on us during Boy Scouts one time. We were like at a camping site. This was in Georgia. We were burning like a bunch of like brush, and like that included a bunch of like palmetto leaves, which just pure like white smoke all over the place.
Nice.
So we ended up attracting some attention because it wasn't that far away from a big shopping center.
Nice.
And they're like, oh my God, the forest is burning down near the shopping center. It's gonna get so there's like 10 fire trucks there. It's
Yeah.
good time.
And that guy was thinking about burning some polyvinyl chloride,
Yeah.
but decided against it because
no, it's a good plan.
and luckily he decided against it just before the DC guys showed up to discuss his plan with them.
That would have been very awkward. That's
It, it was really awkward. I can speak on behalf of that guy. It was incredibly awkward.
Yeah. But a couple of these other comments, picture. Look up what an aquifer is, Kevin. World water supply. Yeah, again, it's not to say that like there can't be issues with water in contamination. It's usually pretty local though. Again, it's very bad for this situation. It's again, given the volume of that river system, it's probably not going to say like increase cancer rates in New Orleans, right? Like it's just it can happen. You can cause like regional pollution impacts. The Soviet Union did it. Man, they sure did like poison some actual regions of the Soviet Union with both just reckless radium dumping and and other like ridiculous environmental hazards, and destroying entire water systems, like, and draining them out. They've done some terrible stuff. In the US, we have like the Ohio River fire,
the Love Canal.
The Love Canal situation. It can happen, but usually you've got to be very persistent about it. Like it takes a while to get there.
Over and over and over and over again, where it fills into the backwater pools and swamps and gets stuck there. That's when it's just the ocean's really, really big too.
Yeah. Because like people say that about like Fukushima, for instance, too. Like, oh man, like Fukushima is pouring radiation. It's like, yeah, but like in the scope of the entire Pacific Ocean, it doesn't really matter that far out. Like it's bad locally. And even it wasn't even that bad locally for Fukushima. They handled it pretty well, but over the scope of the entire ocean, it doesn't matter. And it's not to say you shouldn't do something about it. It's not to say you shouldn't intervene or try to stop this stuff from happening. It's probably just not an apocalypse.
Yeah, it's probably not. Most things are probably not an apocalypse, but I'm still wondering about this whole UFO thing. I'm kind of piecing it together.
Well, maybe we'll talk about the UFO thing next. We'll go back in at 28. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin. And so it's like a coin toss. Should we talk about a timeline of all the UFOs that have been shot down over U.S., Canada, or should we talk about the very real possibility that the United States blew up the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines coming out of Russia underneath the Baltic Sea to impinge on their ability to make money off of Germany?
Edward Snowden says that the UFOs are just a distraction from blowing up that pipeline.
I wasn't even as suspicious as you, and normally you're the moderate on this.
No,
you're kind of like,
I don't agree with that. I think Edward Snowden's being a bit ridiculous here.
What's that?
I think Edward Snowden's being a bit ridiculous on this one, or it is saying the thing that Russia wants him to say because they probably literally have a gun to the guy's head. But
I mean, he is living in Russia. But when it first came out, when this first disruption happened, when the lines blew up, I was suspicious of like the Ukraine kind of wanting to get more attention on their plight and draw in bigger forces that could help them faster and be more willing to really put the screws to Russia. I thought when we discussed it, and I could be misremembering this because I am getting older, that you were a little bit like, it's kind of like CIA-ish kind of thing where.
But my thought was like, it probably wasn't Russia. Like, because they had the most to lose by a gas supply disruption,
Right.
The United States maybe slightly some incentive, but I didn't really think it really made sense either. Definitely not
Okay.
Europe, but United States, like maybe, but most likely not because they didn't want to escalate the conflict. And I thought like the arguments about like, oh, the U.S. just wants to sell their like liquefied natural gas supply, like it's probably not worth the government doing that. Ukraine though, probably had more incentive because they had the most to win from that happen from like the Nord Stream pipeline being
Okay.
disrupted or blown up in some way, because if the gas supply was cut off to Europe anyway, that was kind of the only carrot that Russia had to offer like Germany and other parts of Europe to stay out of the conflict, and now
Right.
that carrot no longer exists.
Okay. All right. So that's fair. So what we have is a legit um a Pulitzer Prize journalist who claims that the US Navy is behind the Nord Stream 2 pipeline explosion. Now, when I say like guys, and when anybody says just because a guy's won a Pulitzer Prize doesn't mean he's telling the truth
And
on
say
this.
you're anticipating my objection to your appeal to authority
Yeah,
fallacy
well,
there. That's
and I wanted to be clear with everybody because I'm a skeptic of everything, right? So when the first line is award-winning Pulitzer Prize journalist says, then I get skeptical. I'm not particularly skeptical that he's wrong here, though. I can see, I don't know. I rate it as plausible. Let's put it that way, Kevin.
it could be like it's the CIA has certainly done its share of, you know, strange, it's sometimes even out of sync with US policy stuff around the world, right? Like
Sure.
it's happened. It's not, but like what this guy's claiming is that like Biden gave the order and he doesn't say like exactly a source. He said he cites an unidentified source. Okay, so like maybe it's legit, maybe it's someone who's like trying to pass information along anonymously, but whenever you have an unidentified source, it's kind of like, well, they could be making it up, or it could be a bad source. We don't know. We have no way of being able to evaluate that. So in a situation like this, I'm like, I'm skeptical because there's no way for me to be able to say like, yeah, that's legit or not legit, or experts to
Right.
kind of comment on this. And you know, other news agencies are kind of like, well, this guy's reporting this, but no one else is. No one else seems to have the same information. It's just this guy.
Well, he exposed the My Lai massacre in 1968. So right there,
yeah, sure. And Seymour Hersh is the guy's name.
Yeah.
And I know he's done good stuff in the back. Doesn't mean that he gets a pass on good evidence now, though.
Right. So you're gonna leave it in the undetermined category still.
I need to see more. Like the folks who are like, oh, it's definitely the U.S. now. Like it's proven. I'm like, no, it isn't proven. Like it's something more to look into, right? And I'm keeping an open mind about this. It's definitely, it's not like there's no way America would do something so nefarious. Yeah, they absolutely would.
Yeah, they certainly would.
But it's to me, most likely explanation is either it really was some sort of accident, but that seems unlikely, or Ukraine did it. Like Ukraine doing it makes total sense to me. They're the ones who have the means and motive to do so.
So
they blew up a rail bridge too, you know, like it's
yeah. So there is out there, you know, Biden made a speech that he would put a stop to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and people are drawing as we can, right? Like he did announce that he was going to put a stop to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. He did. So did he actually put a stop to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline? That's a question that the world is asking themselves.
Yeah, he was just getting you know, trigger happy even back then, shooting down all the balloons now, and back then he's just like, yeah, get rid of that pipeline, stop Russia.
Just stop Russia. They can't look. It's been posited by economists and other people that Russia's hold on an energy market that we enhanced by stepping up our opposition to homegrown energy production, basically enrich them enough that they can fund these military actions. And I think that to me is also plausible, right? So we want to stop their funding. We want to make things tough on them. We do Ukraine a favor. I don't know. Like who else has the talent to get underneath the Baltic Sea and blow up a pipeline besides the U.S. Navy SEALs, brother?
I don't know. I'm sure other people can figure it out.
No,
Like
man,
again, like
no,
the Ukrainians are also like taking boat drones and like sinking Russian like
this is SEAL Team 6
ships
kind
in
of stuff,
the.
For
I
sure.
don't know about that. I mean, it's just you get it. Like I'm certain that I don't have the skills to do it, but I'm not going to assume that like
nobody else can do
either. No one else can do it. Either the Ukrainian government or people sympathetic to their cause, which may include ex-American, military folks who some of which are fighting over there. Like that's
for pay. They get paid really well.
Yeah.
I mean, they're taking a lot of risks, so I guess the risk reward kind of thing. I get it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do it for free, that's for sure.
No, that's
so I'm leaning towards it. It's plausible. It's plausible that we were involved in that.
Maybe. Listen, I'm not no. It's I got to see more evidence. I'm not going to assume that that's the truth just because some guy with alleged authority has it.
I mean, why is Dan Rather even a thing anymore, man? Because of his reporting on Vietnam. And that's an absolute reality. Like, this guy has gone off the rails so far, and people still listen to him like he's some sort of authority. So I just
exactly. You think about folks like him, like all these people who are like authorities in news because like they did great reporting decades ago.
Yeah.
And all right, doesn't mean that they're doing the right thing now. They can go off the rails.
I know, but I pick authorities that align with my conspiracy theorists that offer pattern recognition expertise that works for me. That's it.
There's Tim's evaluation for social news. If they believe in the same conspiracies as me, they must be right. That's
how people pick their authority. That's it. If they believe the same thing as me, that's the guy I want to go with. Or sometimes like an authoritarian can be incredibly convincing. So if it doesn't matter if they're telling the truth or not, if they have the ability to persuade and convince you that they're telling the truth and they tell it in such a way that it's a game I play sometimes. Like I'll say things just to see if I can make people believe me. And sometimes I'm telling the truth and sometimes I'm not. It's just for fun.
Tim, don't be spreading fake news on this show.
It's real news. Ask anybody.
Always real news. But we should actually talk about like the UFO situation. I know everyone's like, oh, it's a distraction from the train derailment, but like it's kind of a weird situation, right? Like suddenly, like, oh yeah, we're gonna shoot down all the balloons now.
And in and of itself, it's kind of an interesting story. We did decide to start shooting down balloons. I think that there was definitely a concern about our response to the first balloon that traveled from the Aleutian Islands all the way across Alaska, down through Canada, then all the way across the United States, before we finally, all the way across the United States, before we finally shoot it down over South Carolina. Like, nobody's buying that. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, this doesn't, there's plenty of places they could have dumped this thing. And why are we so weak and ineffectual? So now, like, four more, or is it a four total? Unidentified flying objects have been shot
some
down.
of them those are a bit weirder, right? Like there's the octagon shaped one, and then there's the cylinders, and the weirder part about those is like they're like, well, we don't really know how they're up there exactly,
Right.
and they couldn't find them, and they're not sharing much information with Congress too. So those are a little bit weirder.
Makes them more interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Like again, with the original balloon situation, I don't think anyone thought like anyone in the military thought it was actually a big deal. Like I said this last week, like it was more like it can't really harm anything, and the only reason we're doing something about this is because now it's a political thing. So we're gonna do this to respond to the politics of the situation.
Well, I mean, the weak, ineffectual Justin Trudeau actually is neither weak nor ineffectual. He's incredibly effective, and he's incredibly authoritarian. Decided he better step up and flex his muscles, right? Like we have to protect people, so they scrambled apparently, guys, I was in doubt that Canada had any of its own planes, but apparently they do. They just don't have F-22s, and they did rely on an F-22 U.S. Air Force plane to shoot down the 3 UFOs. So, but Canada did put some planes up in the air, a couple dual prop.
They had a few up there doing their thing, but the U.S. Air Force got to it first, I guess, and that's why they shot them down. So this one's like I've again, TikTok creators like who operate in this space allegedly, but like their explanation seemed plausible to me. Is mostly like they're like, well, we did miss a couple. Maybe we should adjust our radar. Now suddenly they're like, oh, there's a bunch of stuff coming through. What the heck's happening here? And now they're like
turned up the resolution, like on the old school TVs. You just beep, turn it up,
turn it up a little bit. Now suddenly, like stuff that they were filtering out because they felt like it was noise, it was moving too slow or whatever. They're like, oh, we're seeing all this stuff now. And hey, some of the stuff is weird. Have we just not been noticing this stuff before? We've been filtering out from our radar, tracking this stuff. This is strange stuff. Maybe we need to start doing something about it.
Especially because the Chinese spy balloon flew across coast to coast, basically. Yeah. So we've got to be strong, Kevin. We've got to take care of the people. We got to make the trains run on time, Kevin. Even with a derailment, the trains have to run on time.
Yeah, and Cody, getting to kind of what we had started with is it's all distraction from Biden's incompetence, the Ohio train explosion, out of control inflation, the Nord Stream pipeline that blew up, the ongoing war in Ukraine that our government continues to finance to a tune of over $100 billion. Maybe like it. The Air Force getting to go out and play with their toys, and being a bit glib here, but it is a thing that the U.S. military would much rather talk about, the U.S. government would much rather talk about than anything else going on. I think that's sort of fair.
That is fair. That is fair. That is always fair.
Yeah.
And look, Biden is like the current administration is very incompetent on the messaging about inflation, the Inflation Reduction Act, and all of these things. There is a certain level of incompetence that if we give the people bread and circuses, like a bad call at the end of the Chiefs game.
Oh God, you're gonna complain about the Super Bowl. No.
I didn't even watch. I am so sick of football. I'm so sad about the Bills being horrible for so long. And then
couldn't even watch it.
I couldn't even watch it. I couldn't even force myself to watch the Super Bowl.
So we can't dwell on the Super Bowl now. So we do have to head to break for the radio portion. So thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. All right. And we're out. No, you didn't watch a Super Bowl. Come on.
I didn't. I went to sleep early. Yeah, it was like, this is. I was watching Legacies on Netflix, and it's an absolutely horrible show. Horrible. Like everything is convenient. Everything is emotional. Everything is like social justice-y kind of stuff. It's absolutely horrible, and it's about vampires and werewolves, and I love that genre. But this Legacy show is absolutely horrible. But I've managed to get through all 4 seasons on Netflix.
Watching it by yourself, and
it puts me right to sleep, man. It's epic.
There's got to be something better to watch.
I've pretty much watched all the good stuff. I do kick it with a Seinfeld every once in a while, but I mean, I've watched Supernatural like 17 times, and there's like 75.
How? Yeah, they like isn't that like a full 2 years worth of content? Like,
well, when they had The Office on, I would literally watch that every night for like 2, 3, 4 episodes every single night. And now I don't know what to do with myself. Also, The Walking Dead. I've watched that several times. I love The Walking Dead, though it does contribute to my mental illness, Kevin. And you guys out there need to know this, that I have drastic hoarder tendencies, and watching The Walking Dead, I'm sitting down in my shop going through buckets of nuts and bolts and sorting out screws and stuff like that, because I'm like, if it all breaks down, I'm going to be the guy with nuts and bolts and nails and screws. And I mean, I have 5-gallon buckets of it's like, I'm like, you know what? this is unhealthy. And I'm like, I carry it outside to throw it away. And then it's like, well, let me just find some more screws out of that, because if I have like 5 pounds of screws, at least I got something. It's awful. It's awful, Kevin. I don't even know what to do about it.
Yeah, don't watch that one, or at least watch a more fun one. What's Z Nation is.
Z Nation is good. I think I watched some of that.
Yeah.
I watched whatever. I watch a lot of Netflix. I don't sleep much, but I do like to rest. So I watch TV while I rest. So I have hours to watch TV every day.
Do that, but you missed the Super Bowl. It was actually legit a very good Super Bowl. Like the penalty at the end was
all scripted. You could go right to their rules. WWE, like, it's entertainment. They can script the Super Bowl.
No, they can't.
No, they can. They totally can.
No, it's not big. But I know, even if it was, like, it was an entertaining Super Bowl.
So they did a good job.
Just mad about the penalty at the end. It was a legit penalty that they just.
Was it?
Some
people are saying it's obviously fixed. Some people are disgusted right now.
Yeah, it's sour Eagles fans.
Sour grapes.
Yeah.
Dallas fans don't understand football anyway. That kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm not like thrilled about the Chiefs winning exactly either, but like, I don't know, man. they played a pretty good second half. It's good.
I can make things. That's something I can do. I can make all sorts of things. I can, that is my mental illness has prepared me for the zombie apocalypse. Like, I can make things. I can do things that other people don't know.
I'll head to the library and grab all the how-to books and find you, Tim. There you go. Do that. You should probably get them before the apocalypse happens. Just get a PDF.
Yeah.
Actually, like one of my like crazy things is I have like a Faraday bag that I stick like a Kindle in, and I have like the PDF on like how to survive and like get clean water and stay safe during a nuclear attack and like other survive stuff. It just like sits in there. It's a Kindle I don't use. It's like it's sort of busted, but like it works well enough. So all that stuff, one simple thing in a Faraday bag.
The Faraday bag that's just a Mylar bag, guys. So don't worry about it. It's just like you wrap it with a little aluminum foil. It's all good.
Yeah, basically the same thing. I gave my Kindle a tinfoil hat. That's all it is.
Exactly. I'm proud of you, Kevin. I'm proud of you. Yeah. That's progress.
All right. So we should get to the last segment. Maybe we'll get the John's comment here. I don't know if I have much to say about it as well. John says, any comment on the anniversary of Parkland and events at MSU? Off topic, but I'm asking. I don't know a ton about that yet.
Yeah, I have. I just started coming through the social media bubbles, and I haven't done any research on it. As always, it's automatically let's dance on the graves of injured and dead people to advance our gun control agenda. That's all I see right at the moment. That probably seems disrespectful. I apologize. I'll do some more research on it and check it out.
Yeah, Michigan State University, 3 people killed, 5 wounded. A 43-year-old man decided to kill some folks, and it's awful. I don't know that I have anything constructive to add to this situation, John, at this point. And I kind of agree. People are kind of doing the usual dance that they do in this situation, and it's we'll see if anything like productive comes out of this, but usually it won't, right? Usually it's death, it's awful, nothing changes either way, and we are where we are.
Yeah, and that's we're making mentally ill people, and surprised when they get violent. So I don't know.
Yeah, so it is. I wish I had something more insightful or to add to that, but I don't. I'm sorry.
Then we want to take freedom away from law-abiding citizens who don't have mental illness to protect. Whatever, man. You and I will, of course, talk about gun control and its racist roots and how it punishes law-abiding citizens on a different show, a different day.
A different day. But all right. So that being said, we should get back to our actual show. We're gonna get back at 50 minutes, and we're gonna talk about car theft, folks.
We should talk about car theft.
We're gonna talk about where it's become such a big deal in Rochester, and so we're gonna talk about that, and And maybe we'll do some fake news too.
Go fast.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna be back in 10 seconds. 9. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson yesterday, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin. And the big news of the day, the latest, guys, you guys thought Tide Pods were the internet craze to end all internet crazes. Now, the latest internet TikTok craze is steal a car with your cell phone.
Yeah. Now that's the fun new internet trend.
It's happening all over the place. Thank God, though, Kevin, apparently the government in Rochester has a solution.
Yeah, they are handing out free steering wheel locks if you have certain models of Kia or Hyundais. And it sounds a bit ridiculous, but also it's one of those things where it's not just affecting the owners of these vehicles. There've been 450 cars stolen in Rochester.
Oh, wow, that's epic. That's so huge because the Portland was 169.
Yeah,
like Rochester
450. Yeah,
wow.
Which is like it's like I remember like Kathy Hochul bragging about how like they recovered like 200 cars across the state from vehicle theft last year and was bragging about this. And like us in Rochester were like, man, we've had 450 cars stolen in the last year.
Wow.
Like, yeah, it's a lot. And as I was saying, it doesn't just affect the owners because they're stealing these cars and then going to commit other crimes. And it's actually impacted my neighborhood quite a bit. So I live in like the North Winton Village area of Rochester, and there's been a liquor store robbed. There's been a brewery, Heroes Brewing, robbed. A poutine shop, a poutine restaurant. Yeah,
it's Canadian. It deserves to be robbed.
La Petite Poutine, they're they're great. I went there for lunch today. They're amazing. But someone like what they keep doing is they get these stolen vehicles, they drive them through the glass doors, and then they rob the place.
That's not cool, guys.
That's not funny
about that.
Yeah, I know it stinks. It's like all these like great businesses. Like this is an area that's like really starting to like thrive and do well, and unfortunately, all these businesses are having their their fronts smashed in. Or I think the Heroes Brewing, they weren't successful because they hit like a picnic table and there might have been someone there too. But like all these businesses, like people have been trying to or successfully robbing them using stolen vehicles. And it's not just my neighborhood too. It's been all over the place. And so that's why the city's like, all right, we're gonna put out some of these locks. And John on YouTube says Malik blames the owners. Malik Evans is the mayor.
Blames the owners of the cars.
Yeah, and I don't think that's totally fair. Because I think he's trying to do to be proactive about it in the only way that he knows how, which is like
steering wheel locks.
Yeah, it's like, all right, well, we can get some money and we could do this thing, right? Like that's something because
it's an emergency.
Yeah. He's been there's an emergency. I mean, actually, I won't even use quotes on that. It is an emergency in Rochester. There's a lot of violence going on. There's a lot of car theft, and there's like a major security vulnerability in these vehicles that like these national car companies like should do something about. It's really hurting Rochester. Yeah.
All you got to do is upgrade the hardware in your car. Takes care of it. No problem.
Well, it's software, right? Like it's just like a software update.
Hardware, software. You know what I meant.
Yeah. Well, is that just clarifying for the radio audience?
Right.
Yeah. So you have to go, and I think is it Hyundai has a thing coming out. I hope I got that right. And that you can like go to a dealership if you have certain models of certain years. They're prioritizing, just a handful of vehicles first and then getting to the rest of them. But basically, yeah, there's a way to hack in the vehicles to be able to hotwire them. And yeah, it's been I
guess the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, supposedly, I don't know.
And then you film yourself.
I have not tried it.
And I think that I wonder if if people are going to make the case, and this is going to drive you nuts, that bail reform is at the heart of people being willing to take risks that they normally wouldn't take.
Yeah, I'm
weren't gonna
certain
like
that someone will make that argument. No, I mean, I think there's always been, terrible people who aren't thinking about, like, either not fully thinking about the consequences of their action because they're just saying, funny, like, we're gonna steal this car because we can, like, we're gonna try it out for a trend, or they're like, oh, neat, I found a new way to do crime now, and like, they were always going to do the crime. Like, it's just
yeah, it could be. So I think we should just move right on to fake news. What do
All
you
right.
think?
Go ahead.
All right, so I got one. The home of the COVID camp, the Australia. Is it real news or fake news? You have to wear helmets while jogging in Sydney, Australia.
I saw a meme related to that. I'm gonna go real news. I'm gonna trust the memes.
All right,
Is that real?
I always, my first instinct is always go with memes too. But upon a deeper dive, the council of, I don't know, Sydney or whatever, like your city council in Sydney said, we did not put those signs up, and so it is probably fake news. I still rate it as plausible. Like, I'm just saying, like, I still think, but yeah, did you see the meme with the cop standing right next to the sign saying, like, kind of wagging her finger, sort of? Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so helmets
That
required for
is what
jogging.
inspired me to do a deeper dive and check on that.
So the city council's like, well, we didn't do that, so it's maybe just someone playing a prank or whatever.
Yeah.
And
they're expensive looking signs for a prank, though.
I don't know. So sometimes people are invested. They commit to the bit, and no one's gonna. If it was just a paper sign, people wouldn't believe it. You gotta get the nice, ideally like a metal reflective sign. Like
It's high quality sign. I'm telling you what, this thing was not cheap. That's why I felt it was that's what made the meme believable. That's what inspired me to do more research on it.
Yeah, if you want Tim to obey your stupid rule, just put it on a metal sign in his area. And I guess the government says
there's two things wrong with this. Number one, you won't catch me jogging, and number two, I am not putting on a helmet if I do. Like, that ain't happening. I'm willing to take that risk.
Not that sign, not that rule. So you're safe from that. We're gonna have to think of one. So leave your ideas in the comments, folks. What sign would trick Tim? If we made a nice metal sign.
Okay, that would work.
I don't know. So I need to crowdsource some of those ideas.
Put it out there for the people.
I always think of that Simpsons episode, Simpsons meme, where it says, do not enter, or do. I'm a sign, not a cop. But
all right, that makes sense. I like it. I got another one.
Go ahead.
Did the Antichrist block throughway traffic in and around Saugerties, New York?
I'm gonna guess no. I mean, I haven't read my Left Behind books in a while, but
well, all right. Okay, so a guy apparently did in fact block New York State 212 right under the New York State Thruway, and he had like a truck and a trailer, and it did cause, out of an abundance of caution and a reasonable approach, because the guy said he may have explosives, he did in fact shut down the highway there, the New York State Thruway, which would be 87 North and New York State 212, right there outside of Saugerties. Now, whether or not he's the Antichrist is probably the part that we're not sure whether it's real news or fake news.
So really did shut down the traffic. But
yeah, he does in fact claim to be the Antichrist, but more of the CIA, because when he ran for president, the FBI and the CIA deemed him as Jesus Christ, and then occasionally also as the Antichrist. So it's basically he failed in a presidential run, and his name is Spike Cohen. No, just kidding. I'm kidding. So, anyways, yeah, no, this is elements of real news. Whether he's really the Antichrist, I think time can only prove that out, right? Like it's not necessarily apparent
We're
right
gonna
away.
see. I'm skeptical at this point. All right,
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Yeah. I got a fake news or real news item. You tell me. Was a child punished for drawing a pig with a bow tie in a Michigan school? Is school punishment just getting out of hand? Just punished for drawing an innocent pig bow tie.
I would have to say that that's absolutely real news. They probably drew some nefarious allegations about who the pig in the bow tie was or something along that lines. But yeah, a kid was definitely punished for drawing a pig with a bow tie.
Yeah. Well, it was more they called the parents in. So punished, it's maybe a little bit strong, but I'll show the screen quick just to there we go. This is the pig.
Well, okay.
So it's
yeah.
So there's a little bit confusion about like what was on the pig, and so it's got the.
He's wearing a bow tie.
He's got the bow tie, so it's like 2 round circles, and then it goes, down and along.
Yeah.
Like,
how
tie,
old?
and it's
How
this is an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
So got a talking to for that one.
Yeah, we'd have if I got called in, I'd have a conversation with my 11-year-old too. I'd be glad that they called me in because it's not horrible, and it wouldn't be the end of the world. Trust me. I've never been that awful with my kids.
All right, kids. Like, what was your intent here? Really? Come on.
I wouldn't ask them what their intent was because that would encourage them to lie to me. I would just
there you go.
Explain exactly what the problem with the picture was. Gauge, and this is good parenting advice, gauge their reaction to see if whether they actually knew or didn't know. And then that would merit you would then proceed to the next step from there. You would be like, all right, they kind of knew this. That's one conversation. They definitely didn't know it. That's a different conversation. So you got to kind of, parenting it's an art, not a science.
It's an art. Right. Yeah. I believe you. I'm figuring out my kid's just talking now. So like, I haven't had
a couple years, but boy, I'll tell you what, it goes by fast, Kevin. It goes by fast.
That's what people tell me. Now I just got, my sweet, adorable son, chucking milk at me because he's done. He's like, done. Boom.
Yep. And
Bro,
someone laughed the first time he did it, and now he's going to do it until he's 7.
It's the hardest thing. Like sometimes he'll do stuff like he dumped a bowl of food on his head and he wore a hat and he goes, hat. And I was like, all right, I can't laugh at this because if I laugh at this, he's going to keep doing it.
Yeah. And they will keep doing it. Like some kids, though, it's funny, even at a very early age, will put food on their head. If you laugh too hard, it depends on the kid. Like all my kids were different. Like one did it and was humiliated the way that we laughed at him. You know what I mean? He was just like, oh my
felt like
God.
It was like you're laughing at me, not like
he could
on the
feel
joke.
It. He was like 2, you could see him turn red and he was like, why is everyone laughing at me? And it's like, we still got pictures of it and it's still freaking hilarious. So again, like it's an art, not a science, Kevin. It's an art.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. He's got lots of feelings now. He's gonna be 2 couple weeks.
Oh, that's the best age. Like they say, terrible twos. It's not like that. That's the best age. They still kind of trust you and believe you. Everything you do, they love you. They worship you, like, and they kind of want to impress you and they want your attention. So they'll do weird things to get your attention. Plus, they're kind of checking out the world.
It's cool. No, he's fun. Like he's really excited about the moon. Every time the moon's out, he's really excited. That's fun. Like I have not cared about or thought about the moon in probably decades. Not even that old, but like he's excited about it. So now, like,
like, all right, let's go out and see the moon. Great.
Yep. So it is. All right. Well, we're running out of time for the radio show, though. So thanks again, folks, for joining us. If you're listening on WYSL, of course, on online, we'll talk during breaks. We'll go a little bit later. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you are. But thanks again for joining us on WYSL. Have a great night, folks, listening to us there. All right. And we're out on the radio show.
Cool.
Is there anything we didn't get to? All right,
No,
we'll get to some of these comments.
Well, we didn't. We actually kind of covered everything. The format really seems so. We get into good topics deep enough. The way that versus the 4 breaks format was.
Yeah.
This
Sometimes you got interrupted too much.
Yeah. So I'll read this on the air though.
Go ahead.
Patty sends a Valentine's Day insight. A newborn has no clue what the concept of love is, but they feel it. They feel safe, accepted, their needs are met, they're comfortable and cared for. Making someone feel that is love. That's kind of nice, right?
Yeah, that was nice. Well said.
Yeah, Valentine's Day.
Yeah, but
used to carry a lot more weight in my wife comes home, it's like, all right, I better work since 7. I'm going to bed. It's like 7:30, you know. It's like, all right, happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And that's okay too, right? Like that's okay.
No, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You know, my Valentine's Day, I got the cheapest flowers at Wegmans and some chocolate chip cookies. Wife was pretty happy with that. She got me some Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah.
So it was a nice thing. And my son's daycare, they made a nice like flip book of him that it's him holding up pictures where it says "I heart you," but it looks like it's a hostage photo. He doesn't look thrilled about the whole thing.
No, that's great.
Like the concept is adorable, but like he's looks like, you know, he's skeptical.
There was a news article that I forgot to bring up to you before we did the show. Homeschooling in New York is it looks like the Amazon stock chart, man. It's increasing exponentially.
Yeah,
Gains of
understandable.
80%, 100%, 1,600%. Like one school district went from like 4 to 110 people. Like, boom! New York State education system has to get better. They are systemized. They are centralized. They don't serve. They gear to the middle, and so they don't serve at all. Like that. The bottom line is that they don't serve. I feel like an annoyance from wrestling season with my kid, but they just don't. They don't serve the low end. They don't serve the high end. They don't serve the middle. They just don't serve. They just make rules and they tinker with broken systems until it's so obvious that it's broken that everybody's already left the state. You know what I mean? It's just like, come on, man, get your shit together, do things right.
Well, that'd be nice. But like, there's so much incentive for them not to. Well, like, and again, it's weird. Like, you'd think at some point in time, like, it's not like they have a real market, but at some point in time, they do lose money if kids aren't enrolled in their schools, if they're not showing up every day, because you get paid based on like a lot of cases, like based on like a head count, essentially.
Right.
And so if kids aren't showing up, you're losing money. You can't keep the gravy train rolling. Are you gonna adjust? No, you're gonna force everyone to comply and go in and show up and like, you know, why do better when we could just point a gun at everyone's head and tell everyone to do it our way?
That's where they're going. Okay. What I should say, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. That's where I'm afraid they will end up, because every time they take a look at the problem, that becomes the teachers' union like crow. Like we've got to get rid of charter schools. We've got to get rid of homeschooling. Like homeschooling kids are developmentally disabled. You know, like it's like they're not. It's nonsense. And
okay. Did you see the reaction? Like, so like Governor Hochul like kind of came out in support of like some like mild charter school stuff, like really nothing like all that much more than like what most places are doing now. Not backpack funding like they're doing in like, you know, Arizona or anything. Just like oh yeah, like we'll allow some funding from the state to go to charter schools, and the teachers like freaked out. We gotta
Yeah.
stop this. Charter schools are destroying our state. Blah blah blah. I'm like, man, like just a teeny tiny bit of competition.
Well, that's the problem with the teachers unions. They have become just simply a political organization that is lobbying for money. Even you can talk to teachers and they're like, we don't even agree with the teachers union. They can't really say it publicly because they're afraid of repercussions, but a lot of them will admit that the teachers union takes education in New York State in a bad direction. Period. I remember when I got a request for a candidate interview, like, will you fill this out and maybe we'll give you a recommendation? And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. I just was like, I talked to the girl and I'm like, well, who reads this? Just some board of like on the union, and it was New York State United Teachers. And I'm like, will any of your members get to read this? Like, and then you guys vote and make a decision, because I could have said some cool stuff that teachers would have liked, but that the union would have hated. And so I knew it wasn't going to get anywhere. So I spent zero time on it other than a couple of emails back and forth.
Yeah. Well, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And I know. Unfortunately, until like they matter less in American American politics, but New York state politics specifically, or and politicians start saying like, well, we there's enough of a cost to going with what you guys want to do that we're losing elections, which arguably is the case in places like Virginia, right?
Right.
We got, what's her name, like Randy Weingartner, is that their name? Who's like the national.
Oh yeah.
The right person. Yeah, like it came out like a bunch of the candidates that she supported, like just in the middle of like parents like being furious at public schools for their response to COVID, and them being totally tone deaf, the unions being totally tone deaf to like the actual plight of parents in that situation. Like, yeah, it cost them elections. It's
Youngkin McAuliffe, right? Like Youngkin won.
Yeah. Those are the two in Virginia, right?
I think Youngkin, maybe it wasn't Youngkin versus McAuliffe, but I
think you're right. I think you're right on that one. I'm not paying that much attention to Virginia politics, but I remember that election and that being like a major issue.
It's hard. I pay attention to like too much politics. I think I'm gonna stop.
Probably. So is it really all that much better than sports ball? Come on.
Sports ball. I like the bread and circuses of sports ball.
I did too. I saw less of that from libertarians this year. There's so many libertarians around Super Bowl who are like, sports ball, it's distracting us from politics. And guys, and I know some of you might be listening, like, listen, just let people have their thing. It's fine. There's a lot of like wasteful political consumption too. Like, just because you're listening to something does not make you smarter necessarily. We hope this show makes you smarter, but not every show does.
I think that libertarians should focus on meeting people and talking. When they talk about politics with people, be nice, be funny, and talk about freedom. And I think that I feel, at least on some level, that's an area that I've had some success. Like, they don't want to all of a sudden be like, hey, you know what? I'm a libertarian, but you know what? Tim's kind of funny and he makes a lot of sense. The government does a lot of stupid things.
Yeah,
so
that's the thing. Be likable, speak to the things that are important to them. Like, that's
and point out where the government is stupid and punishes poor people, and doing it and punishes the middle class, and doing it where they can feel it and they can see it. Like, I don't know. I enjoy doing that. So
just a bold opinion, complaining about like too many people watching football games, like, not going to win folks over, right? Like, even if you feel that way, like, it's just, most people are going to be like, okay, this person's insufferable. This
if you're
sucks,
going
right?
to complain about the Super Bowl, be funny about it, man.
Sure.
Feel about it.
Yeah, at least be funny, right?
That's people get that, I think.
No, and I know not everyone's into it either. Like, there's a while I wasn't into football until like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years ago. I started getting into it, right?
Yeah.
You talked to me about like what was going on with the Bills. I would have been like, don't they stink right now? That's all I do.
They stink right now, and they supposedly have a good team. I'm pretty mad. I'm really, like, I knew it was a pipe dream. I knew they weren't going to be able to put it together because I'm going to tell you guys why. Do you guys want to know
What?
why? The athlete tax in New York State is among the highest in the country. As a matter of fact, it's the highest in the country. That's why we don't have the depth of like that the Cincinnati Bengals had. That's plainly and simply Cincinnati Bengals were deep on their offensive line, and we don't have an answer for that. We're not deep. We have great players, but we have no depth, and that's because taxes are too high.
It could be part of it.
It
You're going with that. Everyone else on sports TikTok's like, it's just the salary cap issue and Josh Allen taking up too much or whatever it is, right? They have all their theories,
so,
but, you know,
so
but
you
you're
can
right.
take
It's
right. You can take a look at the
tax.
salary cap issue and the disproportionate effect that a high tax has on the salary cap issue, right? They can't meet a good athlete's needs because an athlete says, well, I'm not giving up 7% more to play in New York, in Buffalo. So
Right.
how do I explain the math quickly?
No. It does make sense, right? Like if with some of these athletes, they're talking about like, I want a few $1 million more. And if you go to Buffalo, it doesn't even matter if you offer them a little bit more, it's going to get taken away anyway.
They're
right?
getting
Like,
less automatically.
so unless they're, you know, either getting a lot more, which makes the Buffalo situation more difficult, or they feel like they're going to win a Super Bowl, which, you know, didn't work out this year.
I know. And they're going to blame McDermott, and it's not McDermott. It's taxation.
New York State taxation.
It is, guys, with the salary caps. And I'm telling you.
And that's how you relate talking the football to politics. Tim, the expert.
That's what I'm saying. You could do percentages if you wanted to put it on paper. You could do percentages. But let's just say a $9 million player wants $11 million to come to New York. That's it. Okay. So a $9 million player in Tennessee or Texas or Florida, okay, gets $9 million.
Like, do I want to go to New York where I'm going to be freezing my butt off and I'm going to have a chunk of my salary taken away in taxes? Or do I want to go to Tampa where it'll be warm and it won't get taken away in taxes? What?
I mean, guys, it's
Miami
obvious.
Or whatever, you know.
I don't know how it could be any more obvious that taxes are too high and they're destroying this thing.
It's fair. That's why the Bills can't win.
And the Giants and the Jets. Even though the Giants and the Jets play in New Jersey, the reason why they play in New Jersey, taxes. Okay.
Taxes.
It's taxation. Hello.
Brand Luso. I personally think football and taxes suck. Fair enough, man. It's your opinion.
Yeah. It's hard to argue with that. His common sense approach, Kevin.
It's fair enough. I don't begrudge anyone who's not into football anymore. Like, if you tried to really convince me like that watching baseball on TV is awesome, like, yeah, I'm not gonna agree with you. I think it's so boring. I love going to baseball games, like actually like being there. Do not like watching baseball on TV. It's just not my thing.
Who would hate that?
Yeah,
communists.
I know.
So
I do not care.
My sports ball stuff, I coached for years, so I was never really like the guy watching the TV. I was like at a little league game or at a soccer game or at a football game. Like I coached for, I gotta say 30 years probably off and on. Like I have a 35-year-old kid, 30-year-old kid. I coached a little bit before she was born, took some time off. Then I started coaching again when she was about 7. Then I coached my stepson. Then I coached my other 2 kids. Like I've coached forever. It was a big part of who I am.
You've been doing this a bit. You're not watching it. You're living it.
That's right. I live it.
Yeah. So I did the 3 sports in high school thing like all year long, but never did travel league stuff. Well, I sort of did once.
Yeah.
But I'm not that good. So
I would do anything to not be home. So I played sports in high school. Like it was like go home and shovel poop into the trough and milk cows. It's like, I'm gonna play sports. I hope. And then it was like, we can't come get you till after chores. And I'd be like at the school till 9 o'clock. I'd be like, I don't care. I'm not home.
Yeah. Oh, bummer. You're gonna have to be done with chores by the time you pick me up.
Get me. Oh, it was the worst. The worst. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Oh well. All right. We should probably call it a night.
Yeah, let's call it a
So-
night. I've spilled too much of my personal life tonight.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate y'all being here. John, Patty, Brian, Alice, I know
Facebook
was on
user
earlier.
1, Facebook user
Cody.
2.
Yep. All the Facebook users.
Cody Anderson.
Cody Anderson, yeah. He's on dropping some of his
Alice
comments
was
too.
in. Yeah, Alice was here. I feel like this is, remember Romper Room? We're like, oh, look. You probably don't remember Romper Room, do you?
They don't.
Oh my God, they had a segment of the show where the lady who ran Romper Room would be like, "Oh, I see Michael and Anthony and Stella," and she's looking through this like magic mirror that turned clear, and she's like looking out through the TV at the kids watching her, and she's waving to them, and so she
just
changed the
says
names every week or every day. And you
Yeah.
just sit there and watch and be like, she's going to say my name today. She's going to say my name today. It was great.
Clever. Love it.
Yep.
All right. So, well, thanks again for joining us. We're going to call it a night. Have a good night, folks. Take care.
Good night.